Hello everyone. Today let's continue the story about the single mother, Dieu Han. After several days of persistently pursuing Han without receiving any response, T became increasingly bold. At first he only watched her from afar, his gaze filled with longing mixed with frustration. But gradually, those stolen glances were no longer enough to satisfy him. T began showing up at Han's house, at first just a few times, coincidentally passing by, pretending to stop for casual small talk. But those so-called coincidences quickly turned into a habit. Every few days, then almost every day, Ti's shadow appeared at her gate. He found all sorts of excuses, sometimes pretending to borrow something, other times asking for trivial help he clearly didn't need. Every word, every gesture carried a suffocating persistence, making the atmosphere outside Han's house tense and heavy. The neighbors began to whisper. Some pitied Han, hounded to the point of losing her privacy. Others grew curious, secretly watching to see how the story would unfold. As for Han herself, she grew more and more uneasy. At first, she thought T was just an overly infatuated man, but the increasingly intense looks in his eyes, the restless footsteps that refused to leave, made her shiver. Meanwhile, T seemed completely unaware of Han's discomfort, or perhaps he deliberately ignored it. The more he was rejected, the more determined he became to possess her. From innocent infatuation, T revealed his stubborn, selfish, and dangerously obsessive nature. One evening as Han returned home from work, she froze upon noticing T waiting in the shadows at the corner of the street, his eyes glued to her every step. She tried to ignore him and rushed inside, but minutes later, loud knocks echoed against the door. Han, open up, I need to talk to you. Ti's voice was hoarse, pleading with a tinge of resentment. At first, Han politely refused, claiming she was tired. But T wouldn't leave. He lingered outside the gate, muttering under his breath, sometimes pounding the door so loudly the whole neighborhood took notice. Each time Han could only hold her breath, lock the doors tight, and pray he would go away. But T grew more reckless. Once, he sneaked along the fence, peering at the light from her bedroom window. His eyes no longer carried simple desire, but a mad obsession. The more he was pushed away, the more he craved to intrude deeper into her life. Han's fear grew each day. The heavy footsteps outside the alley, the shadow flickering in the night, the sudden knocks at midnight, everything kept her sleepless. She knew this persistence had gone far beyond harmless infatuation. It had turned into something dangerous. One stormy night, as Han was closing her window, a flash of lightning revealed a figure lurking by the fence. Her heart clenched. It was T. This time he wasn't at the gate anymore. He had already entered the yard. Moving closer, he tapped lightly on the glass, his eyes wild, his lips murmuring. Han opened the door. I know you're in there. Panicked, Han quickly turned off the lights, holding her breath as she backed into the corner of her room. But the noises outside didn't stop. First came the tapping, then the rattling of the lock. In that instant she realized T was trying to break in. Terror surged through her. Trembling, she grabbed her phone, ready to call for help. But then came the chilling click. The lock had turned. The door shook violently, signaling that his intrusion was just seconds away. In the darkness, Han bit her lip, fingers trembling as she dialed a familiar number. Outside, Ti's voice rose above the roar of the storm. I can't take it anymore. You have to be mine. The lock burst open. The door creaked ajar, revealing Ti's drenched figure in the rain. He stepped inside, eyes bloodshot, breath ragged, gaze fixed on Han like a predator finally cornering its prey. Han backed away, pressing against the wall, her voice trembling. Don't do this. Leave before someone sees. But T no longer heard her. He advanced, hand outstretched to grab her. I've waited too long, Han. I can't stand it anymore. You must understand. No one can love you like I do. The room fell silent, save for the pounding rain and Han's racing heartbeat. She tried to steady herself, eyes darting around for an escape, but T stood blocking her only way out. In that moment, Han realized she was facing true danger. The obsession in Ti's eyes was no longer foolish infatuation. It had morphed into uncontrollable madness. T lunged forward, trying to grab Han's arm. In that split second of life or death, Han screamed, struggled free, then snatched the flower vase from the shelf and hurled it at him with all her strength. The vase shattered, shards scattering across the floor. T staggered for a moment, but immediately grew more frenzied, his eyes blazing like fire. "You think you can escape me?" he growled, stepping closer. Han trembled, but her fear suddenly turned into a burst of strength. She seized the mop handle propped in the corner and raised it defensively. "Don't take another step, T. I've called the police." Her voice cracked, but her eyes burned with determination. T sneered, thinking it was just a bluff. He lunged, but Han struck him squarely on the shoulder. The unexpected blow knocked him off balance, sending him crashing to the floor amidst the broken glass. Blood trickled from his arm, but he barely noticed, only roared louder, dragging himself up to charge again. Han's heart pounded in desperation as she stumbled backward. The struggle turned the little house into a suffocating battleground. Amidst the pounding rain outside, shouts and the crash of breaking furniture filled the air, heralding tragedy. Just as T lunged again, Han nearly hopeless, the front door burst open. A tall figure stormed in, his voice cutting through the storm. "Han!" It was Tan. He froze for an instant, then rushed forward, tackling T to the ground. The two men wrestled violently, the clash echoing through the small house. "Let her go," Tan growled, his fists raining down with pent-up fury. T fought back like a cornered beast, scratching, shouting, trying to break free. But Tana's wrath gave him the upper hand, pinning T down. Han clutched her chest, breath ragged, knees buckling beneath her. Tears streamed down her face, fear and relief mingling, as she watched Tan protect her. "Han, call the police now," Tan shouted as he struggled to restrain T. The house was chaos, rain still pounding outside, but Tana's sudden arrival was a lifeline in the storm. In the midst of their struggle, T suddenly reached into the soaked pocket of his raincoat. He pulled out a folding knife, its blade glinting under the dim light. Han screamed, her heart nearly leaping from her chest. Because of you, my chance is ruined." T howled, eyes bloodshot, before wildly thrusting the knife toward Tan. Time froze. Tan barely dodged, but the blade grazed his arm, blood spilling bright red. Gritting his teeth against the pain, he countered, gripping Ti's wrist with all his strength. The men grappled savagely, furniture toppling, the knife clattering against the floor and tiles. T snarled, straining to drive the blade into Tana's chest. Veins bulged on his forehead, sweat and blood mixing with rainwater streaming down his face. "You're not worthy of her," T hissed through ragged breaths. Han, panicked, clutched the blood-stained mop handle from earlier. With trembling hands, she struck T across the back, desperate to buy Tan time. The tiny room had become a war zone, where good and evil clashed in raw violence. In a sudden burst of strength, T twisted his wrist violently. The knife slashed forward, driving straight toward Tan. A flash of steel, and before he could dodge, T plunged the blade deep into his abdomen. "Ah!" Tan cried out, collapsing as crimson blood gushed, soaking his shirt. He staggered, eyes struggling to stay focused, but his body crumpled onto the cold floor. Han screamed, rushing forward to catch him, but T stood between them, his face twisted with madness, eyes burning with obsession. "See that, Tan?" T snarled, voice hoarse. "You dared to interfere. This is the price you pay." Tan lay sprawled, blood pooling across the tiles. His lips quivered as if trying to say something to Han, but his strength was gone. The house reeked of iron, filled with the sound of rain and ragged breathing. Han tightened her grip on the mop handle, eyes blurred with tears, her heart thundering as if it would burst. She knew now it was only her, standing alone against Ti's madness, and she would have to fight to the very end. The moment the blade sank deep into Tana's abdomen, blood gushed out in torrents. Han screamed, her cry tearing through the curtain of night rain. "Tan!" She rushed forward, collapsing to her knees, trembling hands clutching him tightly. Han's face turned pale, tears streaming down and mixing with his blood. Her lips quivered. "No, no, don't. Don't leave me, don't close your eyes." Tan gasped for breath, each inhale shallow and broken. His fading eyes still tried to find hers, lips moving faintly as if to reassure her. Meanwhile, T stood frozen for a few seconds. He stared at the crimson pool spreading across the tiled floor, the knife blade now glowing red with fresh blood. His face went ashen, his hands trembling violently. The madness of a moment ago suddenly collapsed into sheer panic. "Blood, so much blood!" T stammered, backing away, his eyes darting wildly like a man unhinged. Then, like a beast cornered, he dropped the knife and bolted into the night rain. His shadow disappeared into the dark alley, leaving only the frantic sound of footsteps and ragged breathing behind. Inside the blood-soaked house, Han clung to Tan, tears falling endlessly. Outside, the rain hammered the roof, blending with her heart-wrenching sobs as she prayed the man before her wouldn't leave her. Her trembling hands pressed against the wound still pouring blood. Panic overtook her. She sobbed uncontrollably, then threw her head back and screamed into the storm. "Somebody help, please. Please help." Her cries echoed down the deserted alley, but only the heavy rain answered. Han's house sat at the end of the road, surrounded by overgrown gardens. Tonight it was far too late, no one was passing by. "No, no one," she muttered, heart clenching in despair. Tan lay motionless on the floor, his breathing so faint it seemed about to stop. Han's eyes burned red with tears. She knew that if she waited even another moment, he might not survive. Summoning every ounce of courage, Han gritted her teeth, wiped her tears, and whispered into Tana's ear, "Don't you dare leave me. I'll get you to the hospital, even if I die in this rain." Then with all her strength she hoisted his heavy body onto her shoulder, staggering out of the blood-scented house into the thick downpour, clinging to a single thought, keep Tan alive at any cost. A pickup truck screeched to a halt at the district hospital gate, its tires screaming before it stopped in the pouring rain. The door swung open, white light spilling out from the emergency ward into the darkness. Several police officers and security guards hurried to carry Tan out. Blood continued to flow from his wound, soaking the makeshift bandage on his abdomen and leaving dark streaks on the rain-slicked concrete. "Emergency! We need emergency treatment now!" one officer shouted, his voice hoarse with urgency. Immediately, hurried footsteps echoed from inside. A team of doctors and nurses rushed out, pushing a gurney. They swiftly placed Tan onto it, checking his pulse as they ran, shouting urgent orders to each other. Han still clutched his hand, her palm ice-cold, until a nurse firmly pulled her away. "You can't come in, please wait outside," the doctor said sternly, eyes firm but fleeting. The emergency room doors slammed shut, cutting Han off. In that instant her world collapsed. Her legs gave way, and she sank onto a plastic chair in the hallway. Her body trembled, tears mingling with the rain still clinging to her pale face. Chi-men arrived just in time, wrapping an arm around Han's shoulders, her voice trembling but trying to stay calm. "Breathe, sweetheart. They'll save him. Trust me, okay?" But Han's ears barely registered the words. Everything became a distant hum. In her mind, only one image replayed. Tan collapsing in her arms, blood pouring, eyes dimming yet still looking at her as if to say something before fading. Fear clenched her chest until she couldn't breathe. She covered her face, sobbing in ragged bursts, her heart crushed as if by an invisible hand. On the emergency room door, the red light flashed relentlessly, each pulse like a blade cutting into her heart. Every second in that long corridor was a battle inside between life and death. The space grew eerily silent, only the rain tapping on the eaves, the monitor's beeps from inside, and the muffled sobs of a young woman praying in despair. The red light kept blinking, squeezing Han's heart tighter with every flash. Time crawled by, each second stretching into an eternity. She sat slumped on the chair, fingers interlocked and trembling so hard her nails dug into her palms without her noticing. Suddenly, the emergency room door swung open. A middle-aged doctor stepped out, sweat dotting his forehead, his voice steady but urgent. "Who is the patient's family?" Han almost leapt to her feet, rushing forward, her voice trembling. "Emmy, I'm his family. Doctor, how is he?" The doctor shook his head lightly, eyes heavy. "The patient has lost a great deal of blood, and the wound struck a critical area of the abdomen. His condition is very grave. We must operate immediately to have any chance of saving him." Han's legs nearly gave out. Only Chi-Men's support kept her from collapsing. She clutched the doctor's sleeve, nearly sobbing. "Please, doctor. Please save him. No matter the cost, I'll pay anything, just keep him alive." The doctor nodded firmly. "We'll do everything we can. But you must sign the consent form right now." Han's hand shook as she took the pen, her tears falling and blurring her signature. The operating room doors closed again. This time not only with the red light flashing, but also the hum of machines starting up and the hurried footsteps of staff preparing for the battle to snatch life back from death. Han pressed her forehead to the cold wall, sobbing silently, her heart weighed down with a single prayer. "Tan, you have to live. You can't leave me alone." Inside the surgery, the bright lights shone down on Tana's bloodied body. Doctors and nurses in green scrubs worked frantically, their white gloves already stained red. The monitor beeped in uneven bursts, ratcheting up the tension. Blood pressures dropping fast. A nurse cried. The lead surgeon's brow furrowed, his voice sharp. "More transfusion, keep his heart steady." "Scalpel." Click. The gleaming blade landed in his hand. He drew a deep breath and carefully made an incision across the abdomen. Blood welled out, and nurses hurried to sponge and suction it away. "The liver's torn, massive abdominal trauma. We need to suture immediately before more blood loss," he ordered, voice clipped. Nurses scrambled, one holding pressure, another prepping sutures, others delivering blood and drugs. Sweat dripped from the surgeon's brow onto his mask, but his hands stayed steady, stitching through shredded tissue. Suddenly, the monitor gave a long, flat beep. That froze everyone. "Cardiac arrest," a nurse shouted. "We're not losing him. Prepare the defibrillator," the surgeon barked. Thump. Tana's body jerked under the jolt. Once, twice, no heartbeat. The surgeon clenched his fist, ordered a third shock. Thump. This time a faint beep-beep. Returned, slow but hopeful. Everyone exhaled, but no one relaxed. "He's not out of danger yet," the surgeon said hoarsely, eyes fixed on the wound. "We'll fight to the end." In the room thick with antiseptic and blood, each second was a battle for survival. Everyone knew a single mistake could end Tana's life forever. The surgeon's hands trembled slightly from fatigue but remained precise, quick with each stitch. "More gauze. Keep his pressure stable, move," he commanded, voice rasping but firm. The team moved in sync, one giving blood, another wiping sweat, another checking the heartbeat. All efforts converged on one goal. Keep Tan from slipping away. Time crawled, each minute an hour. After nearly 2 breathless hours, the final wound was stitched. The surgeon exhaled deeply, eyes flicking to the monitor. The heartbeat was steadier now, still weak but regular. He peeled off his gloves, his heavy voice breaking the hush. "He's temporarily out of immediate danger, but he's still very weak. He'll need close monitoring and intensive care." We've done all we can. The team sagged with relief, some collapsing onto chairs from exhaustion. Yet in their eyes flickered the hope just wrestled back from death. Out in the hallway, Han sat trembling, her eyes red after endless waiting. When the operating room doors opened and the doctor emerged, removing his mask, his stern face softened. The patient is past the critical stage. He's being moved to recovery now. At those words, Han broke down, her tears pouring like rain. She collapsed, crying and whispering, "Thank you, thank you. Tan, you have to stay with me." In her heart, a tiny but fierce flame sparked, piercing the heavy darkness that had smothered her. After the doctor's announcement, nurses wheeled Tan into intensive care. Tubes for lines, the oxygen mask, all made his figure look fragile and heartbreakingly weak. A moment later, a nurse approached Han softly. "You can visit, but please just sit quietly. Don't startle the patient." Han nodded rapidly, eyes swollen, heart aching. She stepped inside, each footstep slow, as if afraid even her steps might hurt him. On the bed, Tan lay still, face ashen, lips cracked. The monitor's steady beep beep reminded her he was alive, still fighting. Han sat shakily beside him, taking his cold hand in both of hers and pressing it to her cheek. Tears welled again, soaking his fingers. "Tan, can you hear me? I'm sorry. I should have protected you, but you got hurt because of me. Please don't leave me alone. You have to wake up, do you hear?" Her voice cracked, a mix of self-reproach and desperate pleading. She kissed his hand softly, eyes closing as if to pour all her faith and love into the faint warmth returning to his fingertips. Outside, the rain still fell steadily, but in the recovery room, each weak heartbeat on the monitor was a fragile light keeping Han's hope alive.
Hello, xin chào mọi người. Rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình nha. Thì hiện tại kênh của mình đang kể câu chuyện về người mẹ đơn thân Diệu Hân. Và đặc biệt là ở trong video ngày hôm nay thì Diệu Hân đã gặp phải một tên biến thái theo dõi cô suốt mấy ngày qua. Và nhờ có sự giúp đỡ của Thành thì Hân đã thoát khỏi tên Ti, nhưng mà Thành đã bị trọng thương. Liệu rằng Thành có vượt qua được vết thương hay không? Mọi người cùng nhớ đón xem ở video tiếp theo và nhớ theo dõi hành trình của người mẹ đơn thân Diệu Hân. Để không bỏ lỡ video nào thì mọi người nhớ like, share và bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất nha. Rất mong được sự ủng hộ của mọi người để kênh của mình ngày càng phát triển hơn, đưa đến những câu chuyện hay và hấp dẫn hơn cho mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video của mình. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người.